Hi, Swanand.
Hi, Shika.
Firstly, thank you for joining us. So, you are the managing director at Morgan Stanley, currently on a one-year sabbatical, which is quite interesting to me. And I also see that you have a diverse experience of 14 years in asset management. So, why don't you start with telling us something about your journey in asset management sector?
Thanks, Shika. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm wearing a shirt after 4 months, and that feels nice. So I'll talk a bit about myself. So I graduated in 2005 out of B school, and ever since I have been on the investment management or the asset management side of business. I started off at Fidelity, and then spent some time at HSBC Asset Management. And for the past 13 odd years, I have been with Morgan Stanley Asset Management. So of the 15 years, 14, 15 years, my biggest stint has been with Morgan Stanley. I grew through the ranks, obviously, and I now look at the India investments for Morgan Stanley Investment Management.
Okay, great to know that. So, Swanand, as a leader, please help us understand what your role is and what a typical workday looks like for you.
So it's very difficult to tell you what a typical workday looks like because each day is different. Markets open at 9:15, and they set the agenda really, and not you. But I can tell you what are the broad buckets of time that gets spent. Right, a lot of our time gets spent in corporate access, which is meeting companies, their top managements, visiting factories, visiting other cities to figure out what's really happening on the ground. We meet a lot of people from the equity research side, which is called the sell side. We spend a lot of time reading annual reports and other such reports, analyzing companies, thinking about where to invest. Some time also gets spent in marketing our fund to our investors. So those are the broad heads of time in which time gets allocated. But it's very difficult to tell you what a typical workday looks like because that will differ depending on what month of the year it is and what kind of a result season or a corporate access season is going on.
All right. It would be very interesting to know or to get a glimpse of culture at your workplace and how you approach leadership.
So it's a different sort of a cultural context in a typical asset management business or a setup. One differentiating factor is it's a very small team. Most asset managers don't have huge teams. So an investing team can be even a single digit number of people. So it's a smallish team. And the other distinguishing factor in an asset management industry is be it the youngest analyst or the leader of the product. At the end of the day, you're working towards a common objective, which is to identify great investment opportunities for your portfolio with which you can help your clients make money. So at the end of the day, the core of the job is the same. I maybe do it with 15 years experience. Somebody who has just joined the team does it with like 6 months of experience. So I think at the end of the day, we all think about ourselves as investment analysts, although we have different designations. And in this kind of a setup, what's critical is to have a very open collegial environment where you can bounce ideas off each other, where you can discuss things very openly. Because a young analyst brings a good idea to the table, and if he or she feels very confident of discussing it with her seniors and putting it out for everybody to have a look at it, I think that increases the efficacy of teams, having this open conversation and people being able to speak to each other. So that's the kind of environment we have tried to foster, which is a very collegial, flat kind of an environment where we don't send each other emails. We just walk to each other's desks, have a chat, we'll have tea together, we share our lunches. So it's a very family-like collegial environment where we are very, it's easy to speak. Each member of the team feels it's very easy to speak to one another. And that's how the bouncing off of ideas happen.
That's great to know. I think millennials can really appreciate this kind of work culture. Swanand, we believe as a leader one has to make a lot of strategic and critical decisions. And if I have to ask you, what would be the most critical and important decisions that you would be making while working? Yeah.
So I would say that by far the most important decisions that I make are what goes into the portfolio. It's as simple as that. Where do I allocate money? What kind of investments do I make? I think that's by far the most important decision that I make. I also make hiring decisions once in a while, because although we have a small team, we do hire once in a while, and then we have to spend time thinking more about how much time to spend marketing, what kind of portfolios to construct for our clients. I would say 80% of my decision making is what kind of investments I put money into. So the name of the investment and the quantum of money that goes into it, I think those are the two broad things that I spend most of my time on.
Okay, so since you spoke about hiring, and I see that some mind space is given to hiring decisions also. So a question comes to my mind that, when you're faced with two equally qualified candidates, how would you determine whom to hire? Yeah.
So I think IQ is something which you obviously look for, but I think that is something which, if you have gone through enough competitive exams and gone through certain either engineering, management colleges, you assume that you have that IQ in place. What we look for more is the temperament. Sometimes people call it the EQ, but I like to call it temperament. So what kind of soft skills do you bring to the table? What kind of a team person are you? How do you take a difference of opinion? How do you take dissent? Are you somebody who's curious, follows up things? So one trick that I use in interviews a lot of time is, we are discussing something and we leave something open ended. So we, let's say, even if I know what the right answer is, but we let's say talk about a cricket match and how much an X person scored in that game, or the name of a book, or who the author was, and we decide that, okay, I neither of us really knows what it is, and leave it there. And what I look for is, there are some candidates who will go back, look it up, and send me an email saying, oh, this was an unfinished agenda item in the interview, but I looked it up and this is what it was. I think, and just give me one example. I think it just shows that here's somebody who's intellectually curious, so doesn't want to leave an open item, thinks of it as an opportunity to learn something new, and that kind of stands out. So I've done this trick in a lot of interviews, just leave something open ended. I also try to see, as I said earlier, how that person responds to a difference of opinion. So let's say in an interview, people talk about a stock or a sector, and I deliberately play the role of a devil's advocate, and sometimes even become a bit aggressive to see how people react to that. That sometimes shows your character. That sometimes shows what kind of a person you are, because in an asset management industry, difference of opinion are bound to happen. And despite that, you do not want to break, or do not want to kind of vitiate the team fabric. So I look for those things more than how quickly you can solve a simultaneous or a quadratic equation. I look for more these softer skills. I think that's more important.
All right. Swanand, I hear from a lot of people, in the financial industry that asset management is a very glamorous field. So, what's your take on it?
So I speak to a lot of starry-eyed youngsters who are just graduating, who have probably watched Karan Johar movies, and who think that investment banking is the place to be. It's all Mr. Moneybags are there, without really knowing what it entails and without really thinking too much. But it's just something great to aspire to. Or if you watched Gordon Gekko or Wolf of Wall Street, that's the kind of impression you carry, that is a place where loads of money is floating around and lifestyles are like crazy. But I can assure you that on the asset management side, at least, it's a very boring job, so to speak. And I like that quote which says that investing should be as exciting as watching paint dry or grass grow. So if you asked me earlier what my day looks like, so if you just take a random hour out of my work day, the most likeliest thing I would be doing is just reading, right? Sitting at a desk, reading an annual report, or a research report, or maybe even a book, or a magazine. So that is the kind of glamour that is associated to the job. I don't know how glamorous you think sitting at a table and reading stuff or crunching a few numbers is, but that is bulk of the job. I think people just mistake a Wall Street job or an investment banking job for all the glamour there is. But at the heart of it, it's one, boring, and two, extremely demanding, because this is a 24/7 365 job. You cannot switch off at 5 p.m. on a Friday and say that, okay, that's that, because markets keep moving. You have to keep abreast. And if you really don't have it inside you, you don't have that, what people call the kida of the market inside you, it will remain just a job for you. But if you have the passion to track markets, what's happening, and you're generally curious on those side of things, it's a really draining, but at the same time, a very, very satisfying job to have.
Okay, so something related to that you said, a lot of young professionals aspiring to get into asset management would want to know that what advice, you would have given yourself or you would give yourself when you were starting out your career in asset management sector.
Sure. So I think one of the first things I would say is that ask yourself if you're really interested in a markets job. Right? Not everybody is attracted to the markets in the same way. Do you normally are very curious about things that are printed in a business newspaper? Are you normally curious about what's happening on business channels? Do you like to read balance sheets and profit and loss accounts? Do you like to know share prices? Ask yourself that first, I think, rather than just jumping headlong into a markets job just because you think it's glamorous or well paying or whatever. Because if you're not passionate about it, I think the markets will throw you out very quickly, I feel, or you will just have it like a job and be miserable in it. So first, see if you have that affinity for markets to start with. The second thing I would say is if you're joining an asset management industry, I think ask a lot of questions, because as a 25, 26-year-old, you are excused. It is your right to ask questions, and even if it sounds stupid, or even if you're asking questions which sound like conventional wisdom, go ahead and ask them, because that will help you understand some of the things from a very basic level. And a few other things I would say is that when you're making any investment or even pitching an investment to somebody, write a rationale. Now, there's nothing which clarifies your thinking more than writing things down, right? So if you're telling your fund manager, if you're telling whoever you're working with that buy XYZ stock, write it down as a formal note as to why you are saying buy that XYZ stock. It just becomes a rich repository of your thinking, and plus helps you clear your thoughts in a big way. So I think those are the few things for somebody who's starting out. I would advise those things.
Okay, that was quite insightful. So Swanand, I would like to know, how asset management has changed over the years, and what do you think are the trends that will shape up its future? So yeah.
So I think over the past 15 odd years, what I have seen is the asset management industry has become much more democratized. So if you think about it, 15 years ago, you went to an analyst meet, there were 50 people around, and you probably knew all of them. But now it's a very, very widespread industry in terms of there are many more players out there, many more people who are interested in the markets and are doing investing. Information has become very democratized. I think analytical power has become now very democratized, that everybody has the same analytical power that even an institutional investor has. So I think that is one big change. There has been a proliferation of asset classes and products. So earlier it used to be just equity, fixed income, and sometimes a combination product. But now there are quant funds, there are hedge funds, there are fund of funds, there is ETFs. There's a lot of products out there, and there are different asset classes as well. So there is equity, fixed income, real estate, gold, commodities, etc. The other change which has happened is that over the past 10 odd years, I think wealth management has come to the fore in India, where you allocate money or give your money to be managed holistically, both the asset and the liability side of your balance sheet, to a professional who's a wealth manager, and who then on your behalf decides where to allocate money, etc. So those are the few changes. I think going forward, what I feel, and this question gets asked of me a lot, is that will machines replace humans in the field of investing? When will it become a job which gets entirely automated? And my answer today is that it will be a bit like chess, where a combination of human and machine is superior to either human or machine individually. So I think if I were somebody starting out, I would make myself extremely well versed with data, extremely well versed with data techniques, how to work with huge amounts of data and be able to draw meaningful conclusions out of it. So I think the quant number side of thing is something that I would pay a lot of attention to, which I didn't, frankly speaking, when I was, let's say, 25 years old.
So I think the role of technology is going to be very big going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. So my favorite question now, and the last question for you. So because I love reading, I think our viewers also would want to know what are those 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced your life? So.
So I would say that at different points in time you like different books, right? Because that's also, a book has to appeal to your evolutionary journey as well. So one of the first books that I read about markets was a book called A Random Walk Down Wall Street. It's written by a guy called Burton Malkiel. And I read that while I was just finishing my CA. And that is a book which I was just fascinated with, and how markets work and what kind of bubbles you have seen in human history. It just fascinated me and kind of deepened my love, curiosity, intrigue, whatever you want to call it, about markets. So that's one book which kind of put me firmly onto the path of liking markets. A book that has been very influential in my life has been Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. It's not really an investing book, but I think everybody who thinks, which basically means everybody, should, I think, definitely read that book. Kahneman obviously won the Nobel Prize, and that book is written by him. And if you come to the non-investing side of things, I mean, I like short stories as a genre, and my favorite author there is Ruskin Bond. So I recently read a book called The Book of Simple Living, which is a very small book, but I think it's been very profound and impactful for me, outside of the financial and investment books that I've read.
All right, so great. I think we've been able to get some, I think, a lot of words of wisdom here. And thanks once again, Swanand, for talking to us. It was a pleasure to have you. And I'm sure, young professionals and aspiring leaders will be benefited from all the insights that you've given us. So thank you once again.
Thanks, Shikha. Good luck.